everybody. Welcome to the Abroaders Travel Podcast, your weekly meetup with thousands of entrepreneurs, hustlers, creators, nomads, ninjas, wanderers, and world changers, all seeking to build the skills and connections to live a life without borders. If you want to learn more about what we do or download our entire podcast archive, check out the website, abroaders.com.
Happy Wednesday morning and welcome to another episode of the Abroaders Podcast. I'm Eric here with AJ in Austin, Texas. This is episode 194 for November 1st. Happy November.
Man, time always flies, and I know I say that all the time, but I can't believe that it's already November. We're starting to feel it a little bit. The mornings are a little bit chilly, but Austin's pretty resilient with that weather, where it still gets warm during the day. So that's nice.
And you have a chance every once in a while. You know, it could be 80 degrees. It's supposed to be 80 or 90 degrees later this week.
Yeah, that's a huge bonus. Sorry to all the folks in the north, in particular in our homeland of Michigan. That I don't know what the weather is there, but I mean it's getting cold. It's going to get cold soon.
It's getting bad. Apologies in advance, or
retroactive apologies for not getting an episode out last week. Eric and I were just slammed with business stuff, you know, whether it's booking clients and other operational things. We just ran out of time. And I mean, we've been burning the candle at both ends, working pretty long days, and we just didn't have time. And by the time we had time, it would have been like a 3 a.m., half asleep. It wouldn't have been good content. And it's also been, the last couple of weeks have been kind of light on news and updates.
Well, yeah, there's been a lot of just junk, you know, just a lot of like really
fluff,
crappy small opportunities that aren't worth talking about. Fortunately, there are some good things for this week. And also, we're getting on to holiday season, which means lots of folks have extra spending, lots of presents to buy. And so there are fortunately some really good offers right now. This is honestly the best I can remember the situation being since the Sapphire Reserve 100K and the Amex Platinum Business 100K back last August. I mean, there haven't been this many good opportunities to get a lot of points with a couple of cards, and it's right in time for when people are normally spending money.
I mean, there's a handful of offers north of 50, which is nice because the usual for the offers, like they hang around anywhere from 30 to 50 normally, and we've got some at 60. Good offers that we'll get into here in a minute, and then after we get through news and updates, we're going to touch on some booking stuff. We were kind of talking about this earlier, you know, the extremes of when you book, whether really far out, hoping to have better availability, and then really close in. There's some pros and cons to both, and then we've got a nice booking success story of a first-class flight, round trip for only 115K. I'm guessing Amex points if that's on ANA.
Yeah. Well, actually, so we'll get back to it, but it was two different transfer partners that had to be used to make this work. And just like one of the best values, we've talked about this redemption before, but definitely worth revisiting. I'm excited to talk about the booking stuff because that's pretty much all I've been doing in the last week or so. We've had a ton of additional requests and stuff coming in. I've also been working on travel plans more generally. And so we've got the booking service where if you want us to book a ticket, so we've been getting a lot of requests for that. But we're also trying to dig through and figure out all the people that have travel plans that aren't necessarily ready to book a ticket. So, you know, like I want to go to Hawaii next summer, not exactly sure when, but that's what I want to do, or I've got plans for Europe. And so we've been working on some pretty cool systems to be able to reach out to people, and it's made me revisit a lot of the information about when programs start opening up seats. Is it actually advantageous to start looking at the calendar right as soon as those award tickets are available? And it's kind of a mixed bag, but we're going to talk a little bit towards the end of the show about booking far out, and then also what to do with booking close in when you've got potentially less availability, potentially a lot more availability if the airlines are not selling out those seats, and also much higher paid ticket prices because the airlines know that they can kind of screw you over on price if it's close to departure.
Yeah, exactly. And a little teaser here. Eric has got a nice little United hack that I will try to remind him to share. That's a pretty slick way to pick up $75. Hint, hint.
Can't believe it still works.
Yeah, man. You wanna get us started on credit card offers?
Yes. All right. So first off, we've got 4 really good offers that are not subject to the 524. So again, we've talked a lot about the Chase cards, and if you don't have those, that's still the place to start. But many people out there are not able to get Chase cards, and there's some really good opportunities right now. 2 of them are ending next week, so next Wednesday the 8th, and that is the Delta Gold and Delta Platinum. So the Delta Gold is 60,000 points. It's one of those kind of combined spending bonuses. So 2,000 to spend in 90 days gets you 50,000 points. And if you spend 1,000 more in the next 90 days for 3,000 total in 6 months, you get 60,000 points. You also get a $50 Delta statement credit with that card. You're eligible for it if you haven't gotten the bonus on that card in the past. And then the companion to that is the Delta Platinum. It's a higher annual fee. The Gold card, the $95 annual fee is waived for the first year, so there's no upfront cost to get those 60,000 points. With the Platinum, the annual fee is $195, but you do get a $100 Delta statement credit and 70,000 points after 3,090 days. If you don't have either of those cards, it's probably worth going for the Gold just because avoiding that $200 annual fee. But both of them are good products. Again, Delta's points are not the best, but these ones are ending November 8th. And so this is definitely something to consider. And there are some good spots where you can take advantage of these points.
Yeah, exactly. I was actually speaking with a booking client the other day, and he was kind of picking my brain on his portfolio of points and what and if I were him, what I would do. And the advice that I gave him on Delta was, if you've got Delta points, that's one of the first places you want to check, because the pricing can be kind of funky. Delta prices their award flights kind of unlike anyone else. There's not even an award chart. So for anyone out there with Delta miles, like, pretty good place to start your search. If you find a good deal, use them, because there's not always good deals with Delta. Like that 60,000 miles can be the difference between a round trip between the US and Brazil, and it might not be enough for a one-way in economy to Europe at the wrong time. It's just pretty funky.
Yep.
However, those are good offers, but there's a couple other offers that we feel are a little bit stronger.
Yes. So the other one, and I think we maybe mentioned this 2 weeks ago, but the Citi Platinum Select and the Citi Business Card are both available for 60,000 points. I really like American Miles. We probably book more tickets with American Miles than any other frequent flyer program. The transferable currencies obviously are the lion's share of bookings,
right.
But American Miles still have really good value. They've still got a very competitive award chart for business and first class travel. And this is an opportunity where you can get 120,000 points with 2 cards from Citibank and a pretty modest amount of spending that definitely many people won't have any trouble reaching 6,000 before Christmas.
Yeah, so the spending for each card is $3,000 over the first 90 days. So the business card, you got your 60K there. Personal card, you got your 60K there. And for folks out there concerned about their staging for Chase applications, this business card is a really good option because it does not count against 524.
Right. So the one thing to keep in mind, and definitely if you haven't gotten either of these cards in the past, I would recommend going for both of them, because 120,000 points, roughly 60,000 is an economy round trip. 100,000, 120,000, you're in a spot where you can potentially get a business class round trip to quite a few destinations, or at the very least, you don't need too many extra points to be able to make that happen. If you do apply for both of these, you want to remember you got to wait for at least 8 days between applications. Citi won't approve you for 2 cards within an 8-day period. So apply for the business card first, maybe get that one, and then wait till the 9th day and then apply for the personal card. There's no expiration date on these offers, but I wouldn't be surprised if they get pulled in November. These cards typically hover around 30,000 points. So this is an unusually good deal and a great time to take advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. We got one more offer that I think is worth mentioning because there's been a little bit of noise about it, and that is the Capital One Venture Card. So they've got this is so silly the way they do it. They're calling it a 50,000 mile sign-up bonus, which it isn't. It's really $500 towards travel.
Yep.
So that's valuable. This is very similar to the Barclay Arrival Plus that was previously at 50,000 points, aka $500 in travel with their fixed value stuff. Worth considering. However, I will say it was kind of interesting. I was on 1 Mile at a Time reading the comments on that, and there are some cynics crying out about this card, claiming that if you've got really good credit, they were not getting approved. One guy had a theory that they want mid-level credit risk people. Another person was saying even if you have great credit but you've applied for a bunch of cards, they may not approve you. Like, I don't know how much to put on, a few comments from that, but I thought that was kind of interesting. But either way, this is a decent alternative if you've kind of run the gamut on other cards.
Yeah. The other thing that I like about this one compared to the Barclay Arrival, the Barclay Arrival's got a minimum redemption amount of $100. So if you have like a $90 stay at a hostel or a $90, $80 plane ticket, you can't redeem your Barclay Arrival points to cancel out that charge. With the Capital One card, there isn't a limit there. So you could, have like a $12 Uber ride and redeem your miles and get credit. So the thing about this card is that it's much more likely that you can easily use all 50,000 points in the bonus. It happened to me with the Barclay Arrival where I got to a point where I had like 8,000 points and you need 10,000 points to redeem for anything.
Right.
And so just basically those 8,000 points have stranded until I spend more money, which is of course what they're going for. But that's a nice benefit of the Capital One card is it's pretty much no hassle. It's not that valuable in terms of point for point. I would take 50,000 points with pretty much any frequent flyer program over that. But, a good way. And also, this card can be used to pay taxes and fees on award tickets. So if you really want to make your trip free.
That's what I was going to say. That's a holy grail. I remember that's what I liked about the Barclay card is, hypothetically, let's say you got taxes and fees of $120 on your flight to Europe or whatever. You can use points to get a free flight, which is otherwise unavoidable. We got a couple other card offers we can touch on quick. I thought it was pretty interesting. Barclay card is introducing a no annual fee Uber Visa card. They've got some interesting tiers on cash back. So this is not like a super exciting like bonus or anything. You get $100 after spending $500 in the first 90 days, but 4% cash back on restaurants, takeouts, bars, including Uber Eats. Of course, they would do that. 3% back on airfare, hotel, and vacation home rentals, and 2% on online purchases. So I don't know. I thought 1 Mile at a Time had a pretty good take on this, where for just like a raw cashback card, he prefers the City Double, where you get 1% cashback on purchases and another 1% when you actually pay your bill. So if you don't carry a balance, you get straight up 2% cashback on everything. I'm sure there'll be people that like Uber, and so they like having this card. But I mean, felt that we should let everyone know about this, but the cards we previously mentioned are much stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. Last reminder here, this one potentially isn't even available even if you're listening to this on Wednesday morning, but the SPG business card currently has an extra 10,000 points. Normally it's 25,000. It's currently at 35,000. So this is the Amex SPG business, and that offer is supposed to end today. So if you want to get in on that one, I would check as soon as possible and get your application
See if you got a link, take a screenshot, get some proof of that $35K offer in case they try to bend you on it. This is kind of interesting. So I was just about to say, for people that missed out on this, don't worry. They normally throttle it, but there is a little bit of uncertainty with SPG.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess time will tell. We'll try to keep everyone updated as we learn a little bit more about what Marriott and SPG plans to do together. But either way, nothing to be too frustrated about if you can't take advantage.
Yep. So while we're talking about Uber and SPG, one kind of quick announcement, and this is one I never really took advantage of. This is not a huge benefit or a huge deal, but they have a kind of co-branded agreement between Uber and SPG where if you've stayed at an SPG hotel, and I think you have to be staying at the hotel at that time, you get some extra points for Uber rides. And if you've done a couple of stays, you get some bonus points. I don't remember exactly the term, but I guess they're ending this on December 17th. And it's just kind of interesting to me as far as like what may have brought this about, where, both sides just kind of realized that they weren't really getting any benefit out of it, or there's just not really. Maybe also has something to do with the launch of the Barclay issued card from Uber. But the Starwood Hotel program and Uber are no longer doing the reciprocal benefits, so Oh, well.
Yeah, this next one up here is pretty interesting. So, if we've got any listeners that somehow have some Air Berlin top bonus miles, so for those that don't know, Air Berlin, the shit's hit the fan. They're going OB. They're about done for. They might already be done for. However, they're allowing people with their miles to book on Etihad. Why Etihad is doing that, I have no idea, because they're not going to get anything for that. They're allowing people with top bonus miles to book on Etihad through November 15th. Yep. So you've got a couple weeks if we got any folks with those miles. Kind of a sad story, but yeah, they're about to be donezo.
Yep. One less One World Alliance airline.
Yeah, right.
Other piece of news, this is a quick one, but IHG Points Break list is now out. Points Break is where you can book select properties for 5,000 IHG points a night. So that can be a pretty good deal. I browsed through the list, nothing super amazing here, but if you have IHG points, always worth taking a look and seeing if there's anything that that aligns with your travel plans. And it's nice because they got to split out by region. I always find myself just mostly poking around the international ones, just seeing if there's anything super interesting. I think Mendoza, Argentina was one the last time around. But typically there's some interesting spots. Nothing to book a trip around, but 5,000 points a night is a really good deal.
Yeah.
And typically you can book somewhat extended stays with that promotion. There's a limited quantity of nights they're going to give away, but you can string together a nice long stay.
Worth giving a look. Next up is something that surprised me, I must admit. So I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. Garuda Indonesia, that airline. I don't know why that just didn't ring a bell to me. They're offering 50% discounts on first class awards. So it looks like the example I saw was London to Jakarta, Indonesia, round trip in first class for under 200K. So 95,000 one way. And the thing to note here is this isn't some rink-a-dink bizarre airline with bad product. The first class product
Super
looks
nice.
exceptional. It looks great. Back at 1 mile at a time, that's where I was reading up on this, and he had some pictures, and it looked kind of like Singapore's suites.
Yeah, it's been really well reviewed. So as far as I know, it's just that route. So it's London, Jakarta. It's also Jakarta, London. Doesn't matter which way you start. And they also are offering a discount on business class. So it's 63,000 for a one-way in business class. As you said, 95 for a one-way in first. So that's respectively a 50% discount on first and a 33% discount on business. Booking window here is 1st of October, so way in the past, through the 30th of November. And the travel window is 31st of October through the 31st of January. So
yeah, and if anyone was wondering how in the hell you get some Garuda Indonesia miles, worry not if you have Citi Thank You points.
Yes.
Citi Thank You points transfer partner. We've got reports. Takes about 1 to 2 days to transfer. I'm not familiar with the program, so I can't tell you the nuts and bolts, but we'll have a link in the show notes that should provide a little bit more. But I mean, man, I was definitely surprised. But like you said, very well reviewed, very nice looking product. And one of these days, I'm going to fly in one of those suite classes.
Yeah, it does look nice. All right, so next up for earning points, kind of slim this week, but one that I wanted to mention here. There is a current promotion with Groupon, and so if you already do Groupon, use Groupon, and you've got some offers that look good, there's some pretty nice earning rates for Groupon packages. So 5 miles per dollar spent for Groupon Local, 10 hotel points per dollar spent, and then Groupon Getaways and Groupon Goods are a little bit lower, so it's 4 airline miles and 3 respectively for those two. But if you've got an offer that makes sense, somewhere between 3 and 5 miles per dollar, worth taking advantage of.
Yeah, pretty good. Before we get into this booking stuff, there's just a few other things we're gonna run down. First one, this is kind of random news, but I read what I thought was a super interesting article that we'll link to from a Tennessee sports writer. So the reason that I know who this Tennessee sports writer is he used to write about Michigan State University athletics. He was on that beat, and so I followed him on Twitter, and I saw that he was on a Delta flight from Atlanta to Cleveland that blew an engine, and it just, I don't know. He chronicles the event very well. It's like sounds like a pretty intense situation, but kudos to the Delta pilot. I actually think I've got the name here. Michael Miller, for some reason you're listening, you're a legend. Apparently, Captain Michael Miller did a hell of a job diagnosing it, shutting down the engine, and getting him down safely in Knoxville, Tennessee. But holy shit, man, it was reading that, I was like, it was pretty intense.
I mean, I was actually this is totally off topic of points and miles, but I've been reading this book called The Survivors Club, and the Survivors Club it just chronicles all of these different scenarios where people went through just unimaginable trauma. People that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge
like
and survived. Stuff. Yeah, exactly. And one of the major sections is on airplane crashes, and the stat that absolutely blew me away is that your chances of surviving an airplane crash are incredibly good.
Yeah, right.
It's like, there are some crashes that are not survivable, but like you have like a 94% chance of surviving if you're involved in an airplane crash.
Yeah.
So that just totally blew me away. And there's some other stats that made me think of that, because a couple of the stories were about bird strikes or like situations where the pilot, is basically steering with the engine thrust.
That was a famous United flight. And speaking of that, if anyone's afraid of flying even a little bit, tune into YouTube, search air crash investigations. And so it's this like series. It's, I think, run for a while, and it covers air crashes, which you think, well, isn't that going to scare the shit out of me? And it's like, absolutely not. The diligence that the FAA investigates crashes and these people and the way that they implement new systems. The United flight where they lost it would have been the hydraulics, and so they had no real control of the plane. And so the way, like you said, we're throttling back and forth, and they teach that to pilots now in the rare ass event that you lose hydraulic power and you essentially can't use your rudder or your flaps or anything. But remarkable the way that anytime there's a tragedy, it gets safer to fly. It's like this really weird cycle.
Man, by the way, one more aviation related incident there. So I highly recommend this book, by the way. It's a really interesting book. I'll find a link for it for the show notes. But one of the other ones was a fighter pilot that survived a supersonic ejection.
Holy shit.
So he was going like 700 miles an hour, and like something went wrong. The plane was definitely going down, and he ejected and survived. The other pilot didn't make it, but this guy at like 700 miles an hour managed to eject from a plane and lived to tell the tale.
That is remarkable, man. There's a guy in World War II that I think jumped out of a plane and the chute didn't work, and he landed in a pile of snow. And he survived, just like pure luck. But
corn snow is what you want. The snow that's frozen and then thawed a little bit and frozen. It's got nice round crystal shapes. Apparently that's great if you're falling from 40,000 feet. One last thing. So let's talk, before we get into the travel success story, I wanted to chat with you about this passport website we found. So this is
this is great, man.
It's basically an index of passports, and it's sort of a ranking based on how many visa-free travel options you have. Singapore holds the top slot in terms of visa-free entry, followed by Germany and Sweden. And I just thought it was like a really cool interactive site, and I think we're down there at like number 15, 14 for...
Yeah. If you want, I can tell you the difference between Singapore and the U.S. because I got it pulled up right now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So if you hold a Singapore passport, the visa-free countries you get that the U.S. does not get is Azerbaijan, Brazil, China, Cuba, Ghana, Iran, Myanmar or Burma, Turkey, and Vietnam.
Interesting. Yeah, actually, so when I went to Vietnam with Gabriella, she got to just skip the line and just waltz right in.
We do that weird E thing where I don't know, shady process, but it kind of works.
The ones at the bottom are exactly what you'd expect. It's like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, Sudan. Nepal surprises me. Why Nepal?
Man, you wonder if that's just like, it's such a small country that it doesn't matter that much for their people to have such free movements. They don't lobby for it. I don't know. Like a couple that surprised me, Lebanon. Like I get it. I get the region, but I mean, compared to Syria and Somalia and Yemen, Lebanon has their shit together.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Lebanese folks in the United States. I don't know. Like that one surprised me a little bit. And there's another one, but it's
North Korea outranks Lebanon. Like, who has a passport in North Korea?
Right.
I don't know. Anyway, so we'll link to the site. It's passportindex.org, and really cool, like a bunch of different features to compare and like take a look. So if you're curious about passports and nationality, definitely worth checking out.
By the way, I think this website is like the most intricate and technically advanced lead generation tool ever for Arten. I clicked on the link in the bottom. It says become a global citizen, and it looks like they've got like some pretty serious mover shaker James Bond bullshit where if you want to get a second passport or consulting around, protecting your wealth in really rich movie style ways with different passports. But the tool
it is an elaborate lead gen for
right
that.
I mean the tool is awesome though. It's really cool too. And if anyone has second passport aspirations, they've got this great compare tool. So I've got like the United States plugged in here, and then I plugged in Singapore for the next one. It shows I get 9. If I had a Brazilian passport, I'd pick up 5. If I had a Spanish passport, I think I'd pick up 4. And it shows you the different countries that you'd have visa-free access to. So for anyone that geeks out on that stuff, very well designed, very functional, just like a really good website.
Cool. All right. So links for all the news and updates are at abroaders.com/194. All right, so time to talk a little bit about booking strategy and timelines. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the extremes of booking. So booking an award ticket as far out as possible or at the very last minute. There are a couple of great opportunities, some benefits that you can grab in both scenarios, and a couple of risks. And so we're going to kind of run through some of the highlights. And like AJ said, we're going to share a trick that'll help you get around some of those downsides.
Yeah, man. So let's start with far out. So,
right.
I mean, you can book award flights sometimes all the way to a year out, often 11 months to a year out. So starting with the benefits, I mean, the big benefit here is that you might see some availability that you don't know if it's going to stay there. Like you mentioned earlier in our private conversation when we weren't recording is, hey, maybe an airline has a couple of business class seats. That's kind of their starter pack. They put a couple out there and they see what happens, and you could be the benefactor of that if you
the initial offering,
if you jump on, the initial award offering.
So with that, I mean, there's some airlines that are sort of better than others in certain routes, but in a lot of cases, like what they'll do is just 1 or 2 business class seats and a handful of economy seats that open right away. And especially, I think this can be especially valuable if you're looking to book travel at a high traffic time. So Christmas really sucks. We've been getting booking after booking requests that's like, I'd like to leave 3 days before Christmas and come back on New Year's Day before I have to go to work. And like those are times that you're probably not going to find anything throughout the year. As it gets closer, it's going to get harder.
Right.
But those are ones where sometimes the airlines automatically release seats and nobody updates it, and the revenue management people don't realize that they're going to sell a lot of tickets there. Like they should know that around Christmas, but there are some that at the schedule opening. So if you're going to take advantage of that, one of the things you got to be aware of is that there's 2 separate factors that you want to consider. The first one is that the airline that you want to fly with. So that the paint on the tail, the actual carrier you're going to be traveling with, they release those seats. Every airline has their own date that they release the seats. So it could be 365 days, could be 330 days out. And so they will release those seats to all of their partners, and you can book with their own miles and with partner program miles. The second factor is when your frequent flyer program will actually let you book those seats. And so there are scenarios where, let's say Air France, you've got Air France miles and you want to book a seat on Delta. Delta may have the seat available, but Air France won't let you book until a certain date. And so there can be, I guess the bottom line is that they are not always going to match up exactly. And so there are scenarios where you just can't book.
The airline program that you're booking through and the actual airline that you're flying on the plane, their calendars might not be synced up, and it can be, I think, as big of a gap as 30 days. So there could be 30 days where airline program says one thing and the airline says another thing.
Yep. And so different types of points can help out in that situation. I mean, the bottom line is the date that the airline you want to fly with, that's kind of the hard limiting factor. So if you've got different types of points, you might find that Delta points can book and Air France points can't, and vice versa with other programs. The other thing is sometimes there's multiple options to get to a destination in terms of the airline you're flying on. So just be aware there's lots of charts out there. If you get happy with Google, you can find most of the information you need in terms of the nuts and bolts of that.
Yeah. So let's say that we've got some listeners out there that are amped up for booking travel. They want to try to get one of those first 2 business class seats or whatever the opportunity is for booking early. There's a few tools. I mean, we've got Expert Flyer, we've got Award Nexus, and also, I mean, we can do that on our client's behalf as well to monitor that stuff. But I mean, is there anything I'm missing as far as like that's a starting point? Like you've got our service where we will happily do it for you, and then there's a couple other tools I've mentioned where you can monitor the availability for that flight. And I guess you set it at, I don't know, like a year out or so? I mean,
yeah, so I guess to kind of give a quick rundown of how those services work, Expert Flyer is good in the sense that you can set alerts for specific flights on specific days, and they will email you as soon as a seat drops into the available inventory. The problem with it is it's pretty tedious to actually set up these alerts because you have to individually request a specific seat on a specific flight. You can't just say, hey, let me know if business class opens up, LA to Hong Kong on the 23rd. You got to go through and make an alert for every day. So it's a little bit tedious, but it does a really nice job of alerting you. Award Nexus is better in terms of Expert Flyer charges $9.99 a month, and you get, I think, like 25. You get enough alerts if you're just looking for a single itinerary, but it's more work. Award Nexus is a little bit more expensive, but you can just say, I want LA to Hong Kong this day plus 3 days, business class or first class, and they will alert you if anything opens up. So it's a broader tool, a little bit more expensive. And then last but not least, what we do is we use a combination of both. And there's some services that some airlines and seats that those services can't track. And so we've got just a manual process of like literally looking them up. Yeah. Sometimes we have a manual process of getting on the phone and having to make some phone calls to see if they're available. So that's the one that nothing slips through, but like any of those options, and just have a system, put together a little spreadsheet and set up those email alerts so that you can watch the seats that are important to you and make sure you're ready to jump on them as soon as they open up. Right.
So the benefits is there may be some availability. We just talked about how to get the job done. However, nothing is free. There's nothing good without a little bit of downside. And the risk here is if you have to change your flight.
Right.
There are these things.
A year's a long time.
There's these things called change fees, and they definitely vary from very limited to higher.
As a general rule, you can say that the U.S.-based carriers are going to be the crappiest and are going to be the most expensive by a long shot. I would say probably the fees that are most reasonable, British Airways is like roughly around $50. That's going to be much better than American for One World. The change fee with ANA is great because it's just 3,000 miles to redeposit.
That's nice.
So there's no cash cost. You just lose a few miles. And Singapore is really reasonable too. I think Singapore is about $50, maybe $35 for certain types of changes. So if you have a choice, and we were talking about this before, where like the most important thing is you don't want to pay a ton of additional miles for the ticket itself just to save
get an attractive
a little
change
bit
fee
of risk.
As a contingency plan.
But Singapore is pretty competitive, and ANA is really good for round trips. So for Star Alliance, look at ANA. If you're booking a round trip, they tend to beat everybody on price in points. And then Singapore is probably the best one way that's got a really reasonable change fee, and that kind of protects you if you end up having to make a change. And one thing to keep in mind also is that if you book business class as a safety and you want to upgrade to first class, a lot of programs don't charge you to upgrade your ticket. They'll only charge you a change fee if you want to downgrade or change something else. So that's nice to keep in mind. I know American doesn't do that. They've got like $175 change fee, I think.
Yeah. And that can add up if you've got a few people. If you're booking an award for a few people, like that's annoying. You weren't expecting that extra, $500. But
all right, so from one extreme to another, now we've got close-in bookings. Now, nobody necessarily plans to frantically book a flight at the last minute, but in some cases, there can be really good opportunities here. The big opportunity with this is that the airlines, there are some programs that actively monitor and manage their revenue. And if it looks like they're not going to sell out the seats, they will aggressively and proactively open up award seats in the last 30 days to 2 weeks before departure. So some big examples of this, Lufthansa is notorious for doing this with their first class.
Right.
So you basically cannot book Lufthansa longer than 2 weeks.
They see if they can sell their seats, and if they don't think they're going to sell, then they'll let some people burn some miles.
Exactly. So the strategy there is to book business class or book something else, and then make a change at the last minute once those first class seats hopefully open up. If you really have to travel, make sure you have a safety. Make sure you had a backup plan. The other thing, as far as booking in close, I think the other example that is really relevant right now is Etihad. They've walled off their business and first class almost completely. We've gotten a lot of requests to book with American Miles, and they just don't have anything. It looks like about 30 days for Etihad. So that's one to book a safety and start checking with American. They definitely have availability in the next 30 days for a ton of Etihad routes to and from the U.S. Cathay Pacific is really good about opening up awards.
So we're talking about some of the nicest airlines here.
Yes, we're talking about some of the best ones.
Lufthansa, Cathay, and then we got Singapore on the board as well.
And Singapore, and they do a really nice job, especially for KrisFlyer members. Their availability is much better for their own members. So if you want to book on Singapore, I recommend using Singapore Miles because you're going to get more seats than the general public. And Singapore is going to give it away to their people before they give it away to United's people or somebody else.
And if you got those transferable points, you can become one of their people.
Yes, you can, for free, and it's super easy.
Yeah, man. So as far as finding close-in availability, I mean, it's kind of there's a little bit more urgency. You can't wait forever because we're talking about generally about 3 weeks in. 3 weeks in. Like the examples, some stuff opens up at 30 days, but if we're talking about the tail end of this conversation and the downside, the close-in booking fee, those generally kick in around 3 weeks.
Yes. And, I would say, first of all, if you're talking about a first or business class ticket, the close-in booking fee typically is $75, and there's not that many airlines that do it. So there's more freebies than there are
United, American do it.
United and American do it. Delta does not, so they're the exception of the big three in the U.S. And I guess, as far as the close-in booking, there's typically not much you can do about it, with one exception. And
so thank you for making me remember to remind you.
Yeah, so nice of you to remind me. So United, and this has been going on for a long, long time. I just verified it again this week. I had a ticket for a very nice guy named John. This was actually a domestic flight where the close-in booking fee really hammers you on the value, because with an international ticket that's, retails to $1,000 or $1,500, then paying $75 isn't as big of a deal in the context of what you're getting. But this particular ticket was like maybe $400 up for grabs to be saved, and so it was
more than 10%.
Yeah,
well over 10%, almost 20%,
25%. So the close-in booking fee can be very significant. So the strategy with United is that they do not apply a close-in booking fee retroactively if you make a change to move your flight up. So the way that you do this is you book a ticket on the website for a flight that's outside of the 21-day window. Preferably, and this is just a thing that makes a little pro tip that makes it easier to make the change quickly on the phone, is if you can, find the same flight.
Right.
Like, since it doesn't matter what day, you could pick something months out, just find a day that has the actual flight you want and book that online. And then this is important. You need to call within 24 hours. And I was like...
you want to call quick anyways, because you got availability there and you need this flight soon. Right. So why wouldn't you call them?
Well, to me, I was just like, at the time I was doing it, I was like, so wait a minute, this is kind of sketchy. So like, I just booked a flight for November, 30th, and now I'm calling to be like, I need that flight for 2 days from now. Like, I thought that maybe they'd question me. No questions. Just, okay, yep, that seat's available. And so because it's within 24 hours, there's no, you're allowed to change or cancel your ticket for free. There's no change fee. There's no cancellation fee. And so what happens is United's agent will just book you on the earlier fare, and they don't upcharge you into that $75 fee. So it's going to cost you a phone call, but that typically, especially if you don't do it during like 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m., Eastern time, relatively easy, relatively straightforward. Save yourself $75.
And that's, I can't believe that. I mean, I can believe it because these systems are complicated, and it's not like United is having like an executive meeting. They're saying, where in the hell did we lose all that money? You know what, boss? I think we're getting hammered on not collecting close-in booking fees on these. It's like,
Although, funny, I do think this is going to get killed eventually because I was trying to
they'll catch wind of it on a blog or something.
I was trying to look up what the close-in booking fees are. All 10 results, if you type in close-in booking fees on Google, are about cheating United out of that $75. There's not a single thing that's just like objective general information about a close-in booking fee. It's all like, check out this United hack. So Google is not helping our cause, everybody, but it's alive, definitely worth taking advantage of. And yeah, that's the United trick.
Yeah, man. You want to wrap this up with a booking success story.
Always like
this is a really sweet deal. So you actually, I don't know the details on this. I know the overview, so I can set the stage, and then you can provide the nuts and bolts. So what we've got here is a first class flight. Was this between Japan and the U.S.?
Yep.
Okay, so we got a first class flight on ANA. So on ANA metal, super nice product for only 115,000 points for the round trip. And what was really surprising, only $83 in taxes and fees.
Yes. So this ticket, this was a nice one in the sense that the person that was booking this had pretty wide open, like he just said I'm on the West Coast, I'd like to go to Asia. He gave me like 4 different countries in Asia that would be cool. And I immediately thought, okay, can we find something to Japan? Because Tokyo was one of the places on his list.
Yeah.
And I knew that this deal. So the booking is through Virgin Atlantic. I think we talked about this maybe.
We touched on the
10
transfer and how there's
back.
some sweet deals in premium cabin space. With the
you're right. So the transfer bonus is still alive and well. Amex has a 30% bonus through November 30th. So if you're going to do this, even better to do it now while you've got Amex points.
Right.
And you can get that 30% bonus. So this could effectively cost under $100,000 pretty easily to book first class. It's even cheaper for business class, although I would definitely splurge for first if you can find it. When I was looking, U.S. to Tokyo, availability was not bad. This was actually around Christmas too. So this is kind of the tough window to
Was this
book.
from LA or San Francisco?
It was from San Francisco. I actually ended up booking the flight from Chicago. So this was one that had to be a positioning flight. And that's something to keep in mind with this as well. So for this deal, all of your travel, it has to be round trip, and all of your travel has to be on ANA. So any positioning flights, you've got to book a separate flight using cash or using a different award program. So in this case, we went San Francisco to Chicago using a United award. For whatever reason, it was $10,000 instead of $12,500. So a little bit of an extra good deal with United. Avoided the close-in booking fee. And then the international route is Virgin Atlantic. We transferred partially from Amex. He didn't have enough Amex points to do the full transfer. Amex posts instantly, as does Chase. And so I think Citi posts instantly as well, but I know for sure Amex and Chase. Any situation where you're not sure about the transfer time, always recommend transferring 1,000 points first. See if they show up right away.
Yeah.
Especially because this was a case where there was one seat, just one seat. So the round trip, and the nice thing, you can do an open jaw. So this is Chicago to Tokyo, and then we were able to get a flight back. Actually had options to fly back to San Fran or LA, but the LA flight was even better because this person happens to have some family down there. So
bam, there you go.
Getting to do that, but open jaw is allowed. It's just got to be a round trip, and the prices are a little bit more expensive from the East Coast. So if you're flying East Coast, I think maybe closer to 120,000 points.
Still a great deal in first class.
Man, amazing deal. Amazing. I'm jealous. I really wish I could just go to Tokyo.
What is the deal? What was the retail cost of this flight?
$17,000. Obscene. I mean, so you could get a first class flight on somebody else for like $8,000 maybe, but the particular flights that we booked, the people in the other seats around are.
So we're talking 10,000 United miles, 115K. Plus 88.60 in taxes and fees. You got the 560 from LA to Chicago, and then 83 to get there and back.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty awesome deal. Anyways, that's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you guys very much for being with us. We'll see you next week.
Hey Broaders, don't be shy. Hop over to the website and join our email list for exclusive travel hacking content. If you like what we're up to, the best way you can support the show is by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Lastly, we would love to hear from you, so send your show feedback